This was me 14 years ago. It was my first time in Korea and I could only say about two phrases. 안녕하세요 and 잠깐만요. But I had a dream. And my dream was to be an actress in K-dramas. Sounds crazy, right? Here I can't even speak the language and I want to be an actress in that language. Clearly there was no way that was going to happen. Life went on and this is me in 2023. I had just reached the highest level of Korean according to the Korean Test of Proficiency or TOPIK. And in that same year, I started teaching people living in Korea how to act in Korean. Sounds crazy, right? Here's my story. Welcome back to the channel. This is Josie Two Shoes, and I'm a linguist and lifelong language learner. In this channel, I give you tips on language learning and talk about different topics in linguistics. I recently looked at the stats, and over 93% of you who watch my videos regularly are not subscribed, which makes me very sad. So if you like this kind of content, please subscribe to my channel. That would be really, really great help. Thanks. Let's go back to 2011 when I was an exchange student in Korea. It was my first month living in Korea as an exchange student, and I did a lot of, what normal exchange students do. You go out to eat, you go to clubs, you have a lot of fun. But in the back of my mind, I knew there was a specific reason I had gone to Korea, and that was to be an actress. And so after about a month of partying, I just locked myself in my dorm room and spent all of my waking hours studying Korean. I also got a language exchange partner who I met once or twice a week. By the end of the 5-month exchange program, right before I was gonna fly back to the States, I had one last conversation with my language exchange partner, and I told myself I'm gonna do it only in Korean. And I was able to do 30 minutes only in Korean, and I honestly felt like I had achieved something amazing. Like in my life at that point, that was probably my second most amazing accomplishment. The first being when I lost 40 pounds in 6th grade. I was a chubby little kid. And so I felt like I had done the impossible. Like I could already speak in Korean, and in just like 1 or 2 more years, I would be like native like level, and then I could start auditioning for Korean dramas and films. But unfortunately, that couldn't be further from the truth. You see, the next 2 years I spent studying Korean, writing in Korean journal entries, talking to Korean language exchange partners, and watching Korean programs. But the truth was, I still couldn't watch Korean dramas without subtitles. And if I was going to speak to a group of 3 or more Koreans at one time, I couldn't really understand them. I could understand them one-on-one, but in a group setting, it was just, what they were saying was like literally over my head. So at that point in my journey, about 2 years into studying Korean, I felt like I was doing everything that I could, but I just couldn't get unstuck. Like if I heard a new word, I'd write it down in my textbook, but then I wouldn't really remember it, and it would just be kind of like adding to a whole list of vocab that I had written down and I could never really learn or even use. So eventually I gave up on my goal of being an actress in K-dramas, and I ended up moving to Hong Kong for my master's in Chinese linguistics. You see, learning Korean wasn't in vain. Even though I wasn't able to become fluent in it, it made me realize how much I love the language learning process and how much I love just the language learning environment. So I decided I wanted to become a Chinese as a foreign language teacher, and I went to Hong Kong to start my master's program. It was in Hong Kong in my Chinese linguistics master's program that I took my first class in second language acquisition, and in that class we learned different difficulties that late adolescents and adults face when learning a new language. One theory that really spoke out to me was Stephen Krashen's theory of comprehensible input, which focused on getting comprehensible listening and written input in a language. He believed that linguistic competence was gained when language was subconsciously acquired instead of consciously learning through, grammar drills and textbook style learning. So finally, it all started to make sense to me. So my first language, Mandarin, and second language, English, the grammar is all very different than Korean. And so for me, I felt like understanding Korean grammar was the big mountain I had to overcome. You see, in Korean, there are these things at the end of a sentence that are attached to verbs and adjectives. Let's just call them verb endings. And what they do is that they literally do everything. They do like all the heavy lifting in a Korean sentence. Like it tells you the tense of the action. It tells you the formality or politeness of the sentence. It tells you the mood of the speaker, even like what the speaker's thoughts are. And research shows that there are up to about 400 or so of these verb endings. So as you can see, I had a lot to learn. But because I'd spent all my time learning these grammar endings, making sure I understood every single one of them, I wasn't actually learning what goes with them, the verbs or the nouns or the adjectives. So I could, understand the end of every sentence in Korean, but I couldn't really understand what was the other part of the sentence. And so that took me, for me to do a master's in linguistics to essentially figure that out. And after I graduated with my PhD in Chinese linguistics, I felt a calling actually to go back to Korea. And as of now, as of the shooting date of this video, I've been living in Korea for a few years now. My Korean has obviously improved a lot since living here full time, but it would be a lie to say I didn't have any regrets. Honestly, if I could go back in time, back to 14 years ago, I would tell myself to focus less on grammar and to focus more on just comprehensible input, because that's the way Koreans learned Korean, right? That's the way you learn any language as a native speaker. So now I feel like if I was going to give advice to myself now or someone else, you who are learning Korean or another language, you should definitely learn from my mistakes and not make the same mistakes I did.
A few moments later.
So what's the situation now? I live in Korea. I go to Korean events. I go to Korean meetups. I have a business that I run in Korean. I pretty much just live like a normal life here, like a normal Korean person would. But there is something missing. So although I'm fluent in Korean, I can talk to pretty much anyone about any topic without feeling embarrassed. I still don't reach to watch the news in Korean, for example. I read Korean a lot, on my phone, but I don't read entire novels in Korean. And I could read it. I can understand, most of what's in the books, but I don't feel comfortable. Like when you read a book, most of the time you want to kind of immerse yourself, in the story and feel really invigorated. But because I still have, some really high level words that I just have to really focus on, I don't really achieve flow very easily when reading like Korean books or watching the news. And so it just feels like there's this invisible barrier between my level and a native level, right? And so I feel like I don't know if there's any way for me to overcome that. And I don't know what I can do to overcome it, right? And so that's when the folks at Link reached out to me to try out the app and make a video about it. And to be honest with you, I had never heard of Link. Link is co-founded by Steve Kaufman, who is a famous language YouTuber. So I definitely know about him. But, as my level is, kind of a unique level in Korean, I was like thinking, oh, there's probably not going to be any language learning app out there that's going to help me. But you know what? I was like, it couldn't hurt to try, right? So I decided, let's just give it a shot. And so it's been about 3 weeks or so of me trying the app. And I can definitely say that I was wrong. Remember when I said learning Korean, I would struggle to watch Korean dramas without subtitles? Yeah, well, that still sometimes happens. Like I can catch the gist of most of what they're saying, but there's still some words I'm just like, what? What did you say? What was that? I would watch them and I would be able to catch like maybe one or two, but I wouldn't have time to like write them down or to like even remember what they were after 10 seconds. So Link has made it so that I don't miss any of those words when watching a YouTube video or listening to a podcast. The app is really quite flexible and you can use it the way you want to. So what I usually do is I usually import my favorite YouTube videos that I would already watch, just anyway, put it in Link. And then what it does is Link generates these interactive lessons. So you can watch the YouTube video alongside the actual text, the transcript. And then all the text are highlighted. And as I, listen along, watch along with the video, the words that I know will automatically marked as known. And if there's any word that I don't know that pops up, I can just click on it and it'll just generate a lot of different translations. And I can pick the one that I think is the most accurate or add my own. And then this would turn that word into learning. It's marked as learning. The word turns yellow, and each of these is called a link. And so since I already know most of Korean words, I've turned on something called automatic word paging so that for each page of the transcript, I can just kind of scan through it and see if there's anything I don't know. And if there's, things that I do know, which is most of the time, I don't have to click on it. When I turn the page, all of those words are immediately marked as known, which is really useful because it means I don't have to spend, time to click on every word to tell them I know it. I think this is really, really a game changer. And so after only just doing this a few times, Link already has a really good idea of which words I know. And so now whenever I browse any new material, either on Link or on YouTube, Link will automatically show me the percentage of words that I know and percentage of new words that are in, a video or a podcast. And this really helps me pick new material to watch or listen to. One of Stephen Krashen's big ideas was N+1. N being your current level and 1 being the next level. So you should always try to be reading N+1 or listening to N+1 when trying to consciously improve your skills in that language. And so you can do this really easily through Link. So since Link tells you how many words in a video, podcast, or news article that you already know, you can kind of use it to gauge what you should read next. So I would say like 90% known in a text is going to be pretty easy reading for you. But if you want to challenge yourself to, get better, I would say you can read maybe 80% or 70% of known words in that whatever it is, podcast, YouTube video, script. If you go less than 75%, I would say that might be a little too difficult because the ratio is like just too low for you to really get into a flow and really enjoy what you're reading. And I think that's a major thing about Link is that Link is, it wants you to enjoy the process. And it's not just a language learning process. There's, they have flashcards that you can use to help you remember the links you've created, but the focus is not on that. The focus is on reading material that already interests you based on, the hobbies you have, the interests you have. So the point of Link is that these links or these yellow words, they'll be yellow until you read more things, you read more scripts, more books, listen to more videos, and then eventually you'll be naturally exposed to how these words are being used. And then those words will turn from yellow to white, which is known. And in this process, right, it's like a subconscious learning process, which is really in line with Stephen Krashen's comprehensible input idea. And so it's only been 3 weeks of me on Link, and I feel like there's already so many things that I've learned that I feel like I've always wanted to know about Korean. Because the thing about Korean is that or any other language is people speak fast. When they speak fast, they tend to chop the end of a syllable. And that happens so often so that I don't actually know the spelling of what they're saying, what exactly the sounds they're saying, especially in Korean because the sounds are not really produced in English when you have a K at the end, you say talk. But in Korean, you don't, you just say tak, right? You actually don't know the final consonant a lot of the time. And so Link has really helped me a lot with that. And so one of these words that I learned from watching one of my favorite YouTube channels through Link is the word gung. And so it sounds really cute, right? It is a word that literally means you're scheming something against someone else. And I've heard this word so many times, in conversation, talking to Koreans or listening to dramas or whatever. But the way they say it is so fast. It's like gung. I don't know exactly what they're saying. And I always heard it as gung, which is another Korean word that means to dream. And so clearly scheming and to dream, one is really negative, one is really positive. They're clearly not the same thing. And I wouldn't have figured out the actual spelling of gung without Link, which, that's just one of the many things I've actually picked up from using Link. And so I really feel like for me, especially in Korean, I really can visualize and pronounce and memorize the word much better when I see it in writing. And that's what Link provides me, you know. I think the great thing about Hangul is that it is pretty much like a one-to-one, the way it's written and the way it's pronounced. But the thing is because Korean, like I mentioned, it cuts off the ending consonant so many of the times that I don't actually know what they're saying. And so this has been a real lifesaver for me. I mean, in 3 weeks, I think I've definitely learned more words than I have in the past 3 months because I'm just living life in Korea. I don't focus on every single word I don't know, but Link has already, you know, improved my like conscious and unconscious recognition of words. So I really am more than grateful to them. And so I mentioned earlier that the team at Link did sponsor this video, and they absolutely kindly did. But even if they didn't, I think I would still be mentioning Link in this video. This video I've wanted to make for a long time about my Korean learning process. And I think I mentioned that just about 2 years into learning Korean, I felt like I had just gotten stuck. And I don't think I've really had a breakthrough in a sense. I've just had very steady, very, very steady, like obviously after moving to Korea, it jumped immediately. But even still, I feel like I'm still quite very far from my goal of being native-like in Korean. And I think for the first time in quite a long time, Link has made me feel like, okay, I'm finally starting to get unstuck in my Korean learning journey. So I would recommend Link to anyone who has at least a basic grasp of the language they're learning, because I think I would not recommend Link for absolute beginners. I would say you need to know at least 500 words in the language you're learning in order to use Link effectively and for it to help you. The folks at Link, you know, they really do believe in this idea that speaking and reading input is the number one key for you to become better at a language learning. And I totally agree. You know, I could talk about Korean grammar to you all day, and I definitely could because I've spent so much time analyzing Korean grammar, but that's not the thing that's going to help you become a fluent Korean speaker. Obviously, the app doesn't focus on speaking. You're going to still have to practice speaking on your own time. But in my experience, I've learned that my speaking only improved after I had a good, you know, like arsenal of vocabulary that I already knew, phrases that I knew I've heard and read many times. That only after that was I able to be comfortable in actually speaking, right? If I just hear a word one time, I'm going to be really comfortable to say that word, you know, out loud in front of Korean people, right? But after hearing it, you know, on podcasts, on YouTube videos, seeing it in writing like many times, now I know like, okay, this is a real word. This is what it means in this context, and I'm not going to sound insane for saying it, right? I think that goes without saying, but I think a lot of us just are focused more on analyzing what each word means in context. And that's just not that useful. So if you want to try another way, try Link. I highly, highly recommend it. I'm going to put a link in the bio so that you can try Link out, and I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please let me know how your experience is. And I really hope this video has been at least somewhat helpful for you if you're learning Korean or any other language. I know most of my viewers are learning Chinese, and Link has Chinese. It has a lot of resources, and the best part about it is you can, import your own resources. And so I really think this could be helpful for anyone learning any language. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.